Hello and welcome to Rathod Science Academy. Today in this session, we are going to see very important articles that appear in our today's in the newspaper. First of all, let us know what are the topics of the day, and later on we are going to analyze each and every topic, and at last I'll be giving you prelims practice questions as well, guys. And online students, please don't skip this video anyway. Please do try to watch until last so that you will be getting lots of insights regarding your current affairs preparation. Okay, the first topic it is about will completely close Strait of Hormuz, says Iran. So this article is talking about Strait of Hormuz and this is related to our West Asia conflict, and this topic is important from your international relations from GS paper 2. And next topic is Assam police camp attacked by Ulfa. 4 are injured. So here you have to know about what is this Ulfa, and there is a very high chance of getting prelims question regarding this Ulfa. And this topic is important from GS paper 3 under internal security. And next topic is massive landslide hits Mandi after rain. 9 houses evacuated. So this article is talking about landslide, and this is the concept that you will study in mass movements in geography, and as well as this is also leading to the loss of life of the people and as well as loss of property. So we can consider this as a disaster from disaster management from GS paper 3. And next topic is double engine. Cute slogan, a serious federal question. So this article is talking about one important statement, and this is going to be affecting our cooperative federalism between center and as well as state. So here you have to see what is the double engine is about and what are the issues which are raised in this article. And this topic is important from GS paper 2 under polity. And next topic is compulsory voting feasible in Indian context? So this article is talking about one important concept called as compulsory voting. So this may be a mains based question. You have to see what is this compulsory voting is about, whether it is feasible in India or not. So if yes, what are the arguments in favor? If no, what are the arguments against? So these are the things that you have to see. And this topic is important from polity from GS paper 2. And next topic is oceans more than gases helped Earth cool. So this article is talking about very important concept, that is cooling of our global, that is nothing but planet. So here this article is saying that oceans are playing a very important role to control our global warming, and this topic is important from GS paper 3 under environment and ecology. So these are the topics now we are going to discuss in this class. Read out this title, guys. Will completely close Strait of Hormuz, says Iran. So why this statement given by Iran? What do you think? Where is the Strait of Hormuz located? The keyword here is Strait of Hormuz. So what you have to say is you have to open your atlas and you have to see where exactly the Strait of Hormuz is there and how the questions can come. You may get simple question like Strait of Hormuz is seen recently in news. It connects which and which water bodies. You'll get A, B, C, D options. That is a very simple question. Already this kind of question asked in UPSC. And second type of question that you can get is which of the countries sharing boundary with Persian Gulf or Gulf of Oman. Like that you may get a question. And this one here is consider the following statements regarding Strait of Hormuz. It is controlling 20% of global oil movements, and whatever the oil and as well as gas coming from this GCC pass through this. So like that you may get a question. And recently there is some news regarding the islands in this Strait of Hormuz. So you may get questions regarding this. Consider the following islands which are there in this Strait of Hormuz. So in this way there are 4 types of potential questions that you can get from this prelims for sure this year. So this year whoever are going to write this 2026 prelims, you have to know well about the Strait of Hormuz. There is no choice at all. So you should not leave this. Okay, now if you see this article, it is saying that now Iran is saying that we are going to completely close the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, if this is done by Iran, then what is the impact on India? So we have to see about that area. So now you guys tell me, if this Strait of Hormuz is completely shut down or closed by this Iran, what will be the potential impact on India? Do we have any impact or not? For sure we'll be having impact, right? Now tell me what kind of impact we can have because of this closure of the Strait of Hormuz. First one is it will be having impact on our energy security because we are getting crude oil and as well as our gas. Okay, next one here is our trade will be getting affected. Next, can we provide safety and security in this Indian Ocean region? Okay, again, safety and security will be threat in this Indian Ocean region. And next, recently we discussed about Strait of Hormuz and people who are moving across this. We discussed about medical tourism. Next, we discussed about mango pulp. And next, other related issues with West Asia. Huh? Okay, Kashmir carpets. It is not directly related to Strait of Hormuz, but it is related to West Asia conflict. Our Kashmir carpet industry will be getting affected. Any other things? Come on, think. West Asia, how it is going to impact India? Only this? Huh? Okay, aviation sector. Okay. Aviation sector. Any other things that you want to add here? Come on, think. Yes, investments. Investments will be getting affected. Next, any other things? Okay, so this may be your mains question, guys. In mains, you may get question in this way because of this West Asian conflict or instability. What will be the impact on India? And they may also ask you like, how can we overcome these challenges? Now tell me what kind of measures we can take to come out of this kind of crisis now. Regarding energy security, what India can do? Diversification of our supply chains. Not only West Asia, there are other countries also through which we can get our oil. Next, what about trade? We can do more and more FTAs and bilateral agreements with other countries. Yes, is that possible thing? And what about medical tourism? We can also attract other people by making certain agreements with other countries. And what about mango pulp? What can we do? If we cannot export through this sea route, we can go for civil route or civil aviation sector. We can use them like aviation sector we can use, and we can use this cargo airlines to export this mango pulp. And what about this Kashmir carpet industry? What can we do? Are there any other Islamic countries apart from this Gulf, GCC? Are there any other Islamic countries in the world? Think once about it. And next one here is we can attract investments from other countries. Okay, so here in this way you have to analyze the article from mains and as well as prelims point of view. And now let us see next article. Look at the title, guys. Assam police camp attacked by Ulfa. 4 are injured. So what is the keyword here? Keyword is Ulfa. So have you heard about this word Ulfa? Ulfa. What is this organization or what is this grouping called as? Can anyone tell me what is the full form of Ulfa? If you know the full form, at least you can get something. Something edit. What to do? What is the full form of Ulfa? Rotation. Second option, ida. Okay, tell me what is this Ulfa? United Liberation Front of Assam is called as Ulfa. Okay, so what is the problem with Ulfa now? No idea. Internal security is done. Kiran, Srimanth. Okay, now let us see the context. Context says that four Assam police commandos were injured in an extremist attack. So this attack done by this Ulfa people did attack on Assam police. In this attack, around 4 people they got injured. That is the context. Now you guys tell me, this Ulfa is a good group or bad group? It is actually a militant outfit in Assam. Okay, so if you say about certain facts regarding this Ulfa full form is United Liberation Front of Assam, and it is a militant outfit which is operating in Assam, and it is doing certain attacks against this government. Okay, so here when it was formed in year 1979, and this organization had been found in 1979, and it had even ties with Nationalist Socialist Council of Nagaland, and even it had some ties with Burma-based Kachin Independent Army in 1987 itself, and it started organizing its own self from 1990s onwards in India, and it is military operations, and it is doing against Indian Army from 1990 onwards. So because of this, government of India wants to control this activities of this Ulfa. At that time only, now from that time onwards, we started using this UAPA. UAPA is nothing but Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. What is this Unlawful Activities Prevention Act? I think recently also we discussed about this UAPA. Why we discussed this UAPA? Any idea? I think last week itself. Kashmir, come on, tell me. Why we discuss this? Did we discuss this UAPA or not? Okay, in which context we discuss this UAPA? Huh? Protest against government regarding instability in West Asia. Okay, so leader of Iran died in which operation? What is that operation name? Epic Fury. In this operation Epic Fury, which did by Israel and as well as US on Iran, Iran leader died. So because of this, Islam people in Kashmir, they started protesting. To control that kind of protest, our government is using UAPA to control that protest. Yes, we discussed that, right? So here in the same way, to control this Ulfa also, government of India started using this Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Why we will use this Unlawful Activities Prevention Act? We want to prevent certain activities which are against government of India, which are threat to our security and as well as sovereignty of India. So if we want to control that kind of activities, we will be using this UAPA. In the same way now, to control this activities which is done by Ulfa against government, we started using this UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. And if you see about what are the main demands of this Ulfa is, they are asking for constitutional and political demands for the protection of identity and resources of this people of Assam. Okay, so they are asking for constitutional as well as political demands for the protection and identification of this resource of indigenous people of Assam, and they are protesting against the government of India, and they targeted this army people and they targeted this police forces, and they are attacking on them just for constitution as well as political demands. And even they are asking for right to land for indigenous people of Assam. That means they want to protect their land only for this indigenous people of Assam. And later on, this had been spread to different areas. Not only they are operating in India, but even they spread to other Southeast Asian countries also. So because of this, what happened? Their network had been increased, and they have now multiple sources of getting of arms and as well as finances. So it became very, very strong now. So because of this, our government wants to control that Ulfa now. Okay, so that is about this issue. That's it. So this next article, guys. Massive landslide hits Mandi after rain. 9 houses evacuated. So what is the keyword here? Keyword is landslide. Okay. So where exactly you will be studying about this topic, landslide? In your geography, especially in your physical geography, you will be studying about this topic of landslide. Under which chapter? Mass movements. Under this chapter of mass movements, you will be studying about this landslide. Okay, so just break down the word landslide. So what is the meaning of landslide? Slide means something it is falling across the slope, along the slope. So if there is any slope on this slope, it will be falling. That is called a slide. So what is sliding on the surface? That is land. So whenever rocks or any debris or any soil which will be falling down the slope, then that is called as landslide. And normally these mass movements are influenced by gravitational force. So what is gravitational force? What is the meaning of this gravitational force? Have you heard about this? What is this gravitational force? Gravity means if you are throwing something upwards, where it will come and fall? It will come and fall on the ground. So what is this force is about? Gravity is nothing but attraction. Attractive force of our earth is called as gravitational force. Because of this gravitational force, these mass movements are very much influenced. Okay, so here based on this slope, so this material which is present on that slope will be falling down. And here we have two types of slopes. Okay, one is gentle slope, second one is steep slope. Okay, so I showed you two diagrams here. So one is gentle slope and another is steep slope. In which kind of slope this gravitational force will be more acting, more powerful, in which type of slope here? Steep, right? So whenever the slope is very steep, we can say many mass movements can happen there. But if this slope is gentle, what happen? There will be slow movements. Here we have rapid movements. Especially, I think you might have heard about this landslide, mudslide, avalanches. They are example of this steep or rapid gravitational force influenced mass movements. Okay. So here we have examples: landslides. Next one is avalanches. Next one is rock slides, mudslides. Okay, now what exactly you have to see from geography point of view is what exactly the meaning of landslide is, and you have to say about what are the major causes. In causes we have natural causes and man-made causes. We have to see both, and you have to see what is the impact of this landslide. And next one is very important from disaster management point of view, that is what kind of steps which had been taken by our government of India to control these landslides. And apart from that, you have to draw India map and you have to see in which parts of our India we can see this kind of landslides. So here we have Himalayas. So Himalayan region is very much prone to this landslide, and we have here Western Ghats, and this area is also very prone to this landslides. And sometimes we can also see in this northeastern part of India also, where we have Purvanchal, sometimes we can also see landslides in that area. So now let us go back to this article. This article is saying that massive landslide hits Mandi after rain. So where is this Mandi place located? Any idea? Any guess? Mandi, many a times we discussed in current affairs also Mandi. It is in Himachal Pradesh. So Himachal Pradesh comes under Himalayan region, right? So here in this Himalayan region, we can see that many landslides can happen, especially rock slides and landslides. Okay, now let us see in detail what exactly landslide is. Landslide is nothing but the movement of rock, soil or any other debris down the slope because of what? Gravity or gravitational force. And in this case, what happened after rain? After rain, this landslide happened. That means what happens? Whenever rainfall happens, whatever the soil which is there, that will be mixed with water. That is called as saturation. Yes. So after one saturation had been done, this saturated soil will become very slippery and slurry. Yes or no? If the soil is mixed with water, if you keep your leg on that, what happens? It will be like sliding you or slippery. It will be like very slippery. So what happens after saturation of the soil with water happened, it will become very slippery and it will become unstable. So because of this, there will be increased chances of landslides in this region, especially after this rainfall. And as per Geological Survey of India, in our country, around 12.6 percentage of area is vulnerable to landslides. Very important point. 12.6 percentage of land area in our country are vulnerable to these landslides, and where it is located in Himalayan region and as well as Western Ghats and as well as in this northeastern region. In these three areas, we can see this landslides. Okay, what are the causes? First one, as I said, we have natural causes. Second one is man-made causes. First important one is gravitational force. The primary reason for this landslides here is a gravitational force. If there is no gravitational force or gravity, there is no landslides. So primary reason, which is a natural one, is gravitational force. And next one is climate. As I said, whenever this water is mixed with soil, that will lead to saturation. If there is no rainfall, no saturation. No saturation, no slipperiness. Right. Second one is climate. Whenever there is increased rainfall or precipitation, more saturation will happen and more prone to landslides. And next one here is earthquakes. As you all know that Indian plate is still moving. It is moving towards northwards. Because of this, what happened? There will be plate movements are happening. Ocean, here we have continent. Okay, let us talk about this plate. Plate is nothing but if you cut our earth like TS transversely. So we have inner core, middle mantle and outer crust, right? So in this crust and upper part of mantle is called as plate. Plate is also called as lithosphere. Lithosphere is nothing but upper crust area and upper mantle. They will form these plates, and these plates will move. In this plate movements, we have three types of plate movements. Okay, so let us take these are two plates, plate 1 and plate 2. If those two plates are moving towards each other, then what happened? Convergence happen. So this is called as convergence plate movements. That is the first type. And second type is here we have plate 1 and plate 2. They are moving opposite to each other. They are moving away from each other. So this kind of plate movements are called as divergence plate movements. And next let us take another plates, plate 1 and plate 2. They are sliding one above the other. They are called as transform plate movements. If you take the case of India, here we have Eurasian plate, and so our Indo-Australian plate moved towards northwards and it hit this Eurasian plate. So here we have convergence plate. Okay, so because of this plate, they are moving towards each other. Whatever the debris which is there in this Tethys Sea, which had been raised and they formed Himalayas. Okay, and in this region, wherever we have this convergent plates or divergent plates, there is a very high chance of having this earthquakes and as well as volcanoes. And even this Himalayan region is very, very unstable in our country, and we can experience earthquakes in that area. If there is any earthquake, moving of earth or shaking of earth, obviously whatever that is there on that earth will be coming and falling down. That will lead to this landslides. And next one is erosion. You know about this erosion, transportation, soil erosion, everything. So because of this erosion, what happens? Soil will become loose or rocks will become loose and they will try to fall down. This is also one natural reason. And next one is volcanic eruption can also trigger landslides. So these are the major causes of this landslides. Okay, and now let us see the man-made causes. We people are very great, right? So we can destroy everything what we want. So here man-made causes are the first one is mining. So we are going for mining, especially mining in this region. How we'll do mining? We will go for blasting, right? We will use some chemicals and we'll go for blasting. So whenever this blast happens, and what happens? It will trigger vibrations. Yes. So because of that, it will lead to this landslide. So first one is mining because of blasting techniques. And next one here is unsustainable tourism. Whenever we are going for unregulated tourism in this Uttarakhand, then what happens? The carrying capacity will be more. So if that area can carry 50 people, if because of this tourism, if this 500 people or 1000 people are going and staying in that area, what happens? Stress will be increased on that surface. Obviously that will lead to landslides. And this one is clearing, especially deforestation. If you are going for deforestation across the slopes, then what happen? If there is a tree on this slope, it will be having roots, and these roots will be holding this soil tightly. We went for cutting off this tree, then what happened? This soil will become loose, and that will lead to landslides. Clearing of forest, especially across the slopes, will also lead to this landslides. And next one is unplanned infrastructure, that will also lead to this increasing of pressure on this unstable areas. And next one here is climate change. So these all are the man-made causes that will lead to this landslides. Okay, what is the impact of landslides? Tell me guys. First one is loss of life. Next, loss of property. Now in this article they said that around 9 houses have been evacuated. So people, they were able to manage to displace them from that area to another area. Can it possible to displace that entire home from that area to another area? No, that will lead to loss of property if there is any landslide in that area. Next, do you know about this Wayanad landslide issue? It happened in which year? Wayanad. Very huge and massive scale of landslide which happened in South India 2023, right? So why? Because of heavy rainfall. And how many villages had been swept away? Not even houses, even entire villages had been swept away, and many people, they buried alive under that mud. And even it is very difficult to remove their dead bodies also under that slide. That was that much tough situation that we faced. That means this landslides are not a small thing, small issue. If you compare with this Wayanad landslide, this is the one of the heaviest death which occurred in that area. Okay, now let us see here. The first one is loss of life can happen, and next one here is economic decline because of loss of property, because of loss of economic activities. The people will be going into the debt, and they have to come out of that. All these things will take lots of time, and even it will cause economic damage for our country. And next one here is infrastructure loss can happen, and it will also affect the beauty of the landscape, and even it will be affecting tourism in that area. So these are the some of the effects of landslides. Okay, now let us see what are the steps taken by the government of India to control these landslides in India. Why government has to take certain steps? Around 12.6 percentage of our area is under vulnerability, right? So here government has to take certain steps to control this kind of events in future. So first important step here is NDMA. What is full form of NDMA? National Disaster Management Authority. So here NDMA released guidelines regarding management of landslides and as well as snow avalanches, and they came up with a national policy for management of landslides and as well as other related activities in our country. So NDMA, SDMA, and we have DDMA. National level we have NDMA, state level we have SDMA, and district level we have DDMA. So they will be taking effective actions to control the disasters at their level. At national level, now NDMA came up with a plan, and this plan has to be implemented throughout the country wherever we have this vulnerability areas of this landslides. And we have landslide risk management scheme, and this scheme is focusing on prevention of landslides, disaster mitigation, and research and development in monitoring of this landslides in our country. That is the second step. And third one is we have landslide monitoring and early warning system. So what this early warning system is about? So they will be identifying what is going to be happen, and they will be giving alerts to the people, right? So we are developing low cost sensors and as well as other instruments for monitoring of this landslide, and we are using micro electromechanical system based sensor technology and as well as AI now in this area as well. And this one is we are going to improve public awareness, especially the people who are living in these vulnerable areas. They have to know what are the do's and as well as don'ts during this landslides. So we are going for increasing of awareness of the people in this area. And this one is we went for risk mapping of hilly areas, and this is done by Geological Survey of India. Geological Survey of India, and along with this Ministry of Mines, they completed landslide susceptibility mapping, and they went for giving of this remedial measures in that area. So if you are a district collector in that one of those district which is prone to this landslide, the first thing is you have to know about the which kind of disasters are there in your area. The first thing, the training will be done on these disasters only, because for this district disaster management authority you will be the head. As a district collector you will be the head for that, and you should be the first person to respond to any kind of disaster in your state. So for that you will be having this kind of accessibility and as well as susceptibility mapping of your district, that will be there in your office first. So in the training also they will be make you to learn about this kind of disasters in your area, and later on you will be made to learn like what kind of steps you have to take. Okay, that will be the part of your training actually. And this one is we have Indian landslide susceptibility map as well. Overall in our country also we have susceptibility map, in which area we have which kind of disasters. Now can you please tell me which kind of disasters are seen in India? First one is floods, yes, especially because of rainfall during monsoon season. Or the next one here is whenever there is any cyclone which happened in this Arabian Sea or Bay of Bengal also. What happened? There is a threat of floods and as well as storms in this coastal areas. And next one here is we have threat of wildfires. Recently, in which area we studied about this forest fires? Two areas. First one is, huh? Be allowed. Okay, next. In India, Uttarakhand Valley of Flowers, and in Arunachal Pradesh also, wildfires in the forest. Next one is we have landslide, we have avalanches. Next, we have earthquakes. So can you tell me zone 5 earthquake area in India? In which areas we have the zone 5 earthquake? Himalayan region, apart from that, Gujarat region. And next other things, we have droughts, we have heat waves, recently we had cold wave. So like that we have different kinds of disasters. So you have to know in which area which kind of disaster is possible, and you have to check whether you are posted in the safest area or like deadliest area. Okay, see this next article guys. How agri PV can turn India's farm into dual purpose powerhouses. What is this article talking about? What is the keyword? How agri PV can turn India's farms into dual purpose powerhouse. What is the meaning of this title? What can you understand? What can you info for this title? What can you understand from this title, Navita? What do you understand? It is talking about something related to power. It is talking about India's farms. See this image. What is this image is about? Sheep. Next. You can see some grass, sheep. Now read the title. How agri PV can turn India's farms into dual purpose powerhouse. What does it mean? By using? By using one technique, we can ensure that it is related to something electricity. Okay, so what this image that you can see here, you can see it is a farm, right? And there are sheep, they are grazing in one grass area, and it is under controlled environment, right? So I think you might have heard about this solar rooftops. What is solar rooftops is about? The place we are living in our home itself, on the top, on this terrace, we have to arrange this solar panels so that we can generate electricity that is required. Yes, that is the thing. And next, recently we discussed that because of this West Asian crisis, now we are getting LPG crisis in our country. For that, what is the solution we have? We have to go for electrifying of our kitchens. Did we discuss this article or not? Electrifying of kitchens is not possible in India. Why? Because if suddenly millions of people, they are moving towards electrification, whatever the grids, whatever the power mechanisms, discoms are there, can they provide electricity for all houses? So for that article, what we discussed, what is the way forward? We have to go for rooftops, solar rooftops. That will be the sustainable solution for our LPG crisis in our country. That is the thing that we discussed on that day. So now this article is saying that wherever we are going for this allied sector. What is allied sector? Poultry farms, cattle, sheep, and even fisheries. All this comes under our allied sector. In this allied sector also, if we are creating any infrastructure, or this infrastructure also, we can go for arrangement of solar panels. This concept is called as agri-PV. So the keyword here is agri-PV. Are you understanding here? So how can you get a question is consider the following statements regarding agri-PV. They will give you the statements and they may ask you which of the above are correct or incorrect. Are you understanding? And this article you can use whenever you are writing any answer related to renewable energy shift, or how to reduce this global warming, or how to reduce this carbon dioxide emissions. So from that environment and ecology also, you can use one example, that is agri-PVs. Why? Because mostly around 50% of our population depend on agriculture as their primary activity, right? And not only agriculture, they're also going for allied activities like poultry, rearing of cattle, sheep, goat, and even fisheries, etc., to minimize the waste from this agriculture, right? So in that context, if you're going for this electrification or using of the solar panels in this area, obviously we can reap more benefits. So that is this article talking about. So when we are going for electrification of our allied sectors, then we can turn our Indian farms into dual purpose. So we can create energy, or we can create electricity for our use, and even if there is anything which is excess producements, we can directly sell to the government, right? So in this way, it will also increase the income of our farmers. Okay, so that is the thing which mainly said here. Please make a note about this agri photovoltaics. So agri-PV is nothing but agri photovoltaics. It integrates solar system with farming. It integrates solar system with farming and allows farmer to generate electricity and cultivate crops on the same parcel of land. Okay, so how can you get a question here is recently agrivoltaics is seen in news. What does it means? Like that they may give you simple ABCD types of question also, or else they'll give you statement based question. Okay, we are using, or we are integrating solar system in our farming, so that it will be helpful for generating of electricity for the farmers, and they can also cultivate in that crop, and they can use that electricity that produced to run this power pumps or power sets in that, or pump sets in that area, and even if they are getting any excess, they can also sell to this government. Okay, so here in this agrivoltaics, we are going to fix the solar panels at a suitable height to allow farm operations below. So here in this image you can see here. So we are mounting this solar panels above, so that under this we are growing our whatever the grass we need, and we are continuing our allied activities as well. Are you understanding? So these are the solar panels. Under that we have grass. Under that, here you can see how this we are using for the multi-purpose. Okay, next one here is this method will be helpful for minimizing of our greenhouse gases. Why? Because we are producing electricity by trapping as much as solar power as possible, so that we are minimizing our burning of coal. That will lead to obviously reducing of carbon dioxide emissions, and we can control this greenhouse emissions. Okay, and this is very important because in our economy we are dependent heavily on agriculture, and this technology will helpful for the farmers, so that they can also diversify their income, and we can produce more and more clean energy in our country. That is the thing that we said. And here you have to see about one important scheme called as PM Kusum. So recent consultations on PM Kusum have indicated that government may include agri-PV in a proposed national agri-voltaics mission, and we can generate around 10 gigawatts of electricity by using this agri-photovoltaics. Okay, now here you have to see about this scheme also, PM Kusum. And every year in your prelims, minimum 3 questions will be there in your examination related to schemes. That may be like new schemes, or that may be like old schemes. So here you have to see certain new schemes which are there in the last week. First one here is small hydroelectric project. and second one is Bhavya. So these two are the most expected themes of UPSC prelims this year. So apart from that, you have to see other programs like PM Poshan. Why we discussed about this PM Poshan? Do you know this Chaganti? Have you heard about this Chaganti? Chaganti, he made certain statements against this midday meals program, and most of the news channels are focusing on the debates related to this midday meals program now. That is nothing but PM Poshan program. Recently, our government said that we want to integrate breakfast also in this PM Poshan. But on another side, Chaganti gave this kind of some controversial statements. Huh? Gargapati, not Chaganti. Not Chaganti. Who is this Chaganti then? Yes, yes, yeah, Gargapati. Yeah, he's also same religious leader who will be. Okay, Pravachnalu. Okay. Yes, he is not Chaganti, he is Gargapati. So he made certain statements regarding this midday meals program. On another side, government wants to include even breakfast in this midday meals, but he gave certain statements against this. So because of this, it is becoming viral across this international news media also. This time you may get a question regarding this PM Poshan. Okay, see about this PM Poshan and this Bhavya scheme. Next one is small hydropower project, and next one here is PM Kusum, because nowadays we are talking about the solar related things, right? So last year in 2025 there was a question regarding PM Suryagar Muft Bijli Yojana. They didn't ask about this question regarding Kusum. This time they may ask about this PM Kusum. Okay, so now let us see some facts regarding this PM Kusum. PM Kusum launched by Ministry of New Renewable Energy in year 2019 itself, and this program is focusing on installation of off-grid solar pumps in rural areas. Okay, so that we can generate solar energy and we can use that energy for running of pump sets in our agriculture. Okay. The important objective here is to enable farmers to set up solar power generation, and by using that energy they can use in the agriculture, but if they are reaping more and more energy, they can sell that to the grid also, so that they will be getting some income. Okay, that's it guys. See this next article, double engine cute slogan, a serious federal question. Yes, what is this article talking about? And here if you see the author of this article, he is a former chief election commissioner of India. So whenever you are reading your editorials, you have to be very careful, like who wrote this. Very, very important. Based on the person who wrote that article, you have to select certain articles. Okay, so he is a former chief election commissioner of India. So who is the chief election commissioner? Which article talks about it? Article 324. Okay, this year from polity point of view, you have to know about this chief election commissioner also, because why? In Lok Sabha, removal motion for this chief election commissioner was there, right? They want to pass this. So because of this time, chief election commissioner and speaker is also very important. So now you guys tell me, what are the problems in our elections? They're talking about elections only. If chief election commissioner is writing something, he'll be writing about elections related things. Yes. So if you see this article, now in which states we are going to have elections? Tamil Nadu, Kerala, West Bengal, Assam, Puducherry. So in these areas we have elections. So if you go to the southern states, what is the issue? Southern states like Tamil Nadu and Kerala, what is the issue? Central government is one power, central government comes from one political party and state government is coming from another political party. So because of this, there is no harmony between the political party which is in power in the state and as well as political party which is power in the central. So because of this, what is the issue that we discussed in Tamil Nadu related things? Passing of bills had been stopped by governor, and this finally went to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court gave a timeline of 3 months and 1 month. Yes, so that is the thing that we discussed in earlier classes. Now here Tamil Nadu is having elections. Yes, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka is having elections now. So because of this article is there in news, and this article is saying that double engine sarkar, this is a slogan which is there, double engine sarkar, slogan may sound appealing, but it is threatening unequal development based on political alignment, undermining in constitutional federal structure. So what is a federalism? Whenever there is an equal sharing of powers between central and as well as state, that is called as federalism, right? So do India is a perfect federal country? No, we have unitary bias as well. So it is called as quasi-federal structure. India is having quasi-federal structure. What is quasi-federal structure? So if we're talking about federalism, there will be the clear-cut demarcation of powers between central and as well as state. But in India, sometimes central will become more strong so that it will be affecting the sharing of powers between center and state. And this model is called as quasi-federal model. So what are the examples when the central will become more powerful? When there is any imposition of emergency. It may be president's rule or it may be national emergency. Central government will become more powerful. And we have Article 312, what it is about? All India services. So who will be appointing you is central government. But where you are getting posted? States. Then that means central government is more powerful regarding this All India services. And we have a post called as governor. Who will be appointing this governor? Central government. But they are working as head of states. So like that, there are certain provisions which shows that central government is more powerful in some cases. So because of this, there is no perfect division of powers between central and state. So because of this, Indian model is called as quasi-federal model. Okay. Now this article is saying that this slogan, double engine sarkar, is there now in the politics. So because of this, what is happening? It is affecting our constitutional federal structure. So now let us see why this slogan is raising the serious federal or constitutional question. The first one here is India's constitution treats union and states as equal partners in the spheres like public funds belonging to the republic, not to any ruling party. So now whatever the public funds we have, so we have Consolidated Fund of India, we have Contingency Fund, and we have public accounts, right? So these are the three important funds. So whatever the government which is collecting taxes, everything which comes to this Consolidated Fund of India, and from this Consolidated Fund of India only, government will be providing salaries for this constitutional courts, everything. And what about this public accounts fund? From where this money comes into this fund? PFs. They'll be paying no PF. So all this PF will come into this public accounts, and once the maturity is done at the time of the retirement, they'll be getting lump sum amount. So that money will comes from this public accounts, right? So here this article is saying that whatever the funds which are coming to our country, that will not belongs to a particular ruling party or opposition party. So it is a public money. That is the thing which mainly said here. And next one is whenever the resource is distributed. So we have 16th Finance Commission which had been recently came into picture, and under Article 280 talks about President has to form this Finance Commission once in every 5 years. And now we have 16th Finance Commission. So what is the 16th Finance Commission recommended? So whatever the funds which are there with the central government, it has to share with the states. But how much percentage? 41 percentage. And do this cess and surcharge will come under that? No, cess and surcharge will not be shared by the central government with the state. So here, whatever the money which is there here, it is not the money of any ruling party. So it is the money of the people. According to the recommendations of this Finance Commission, they have to distribute. And whenever they are distributing, they will be having certain criteria. What is that criteria? First one is population. Next one is area, environment, and even forest, demographic performance. So based on certain criteria, they will be giving that money, right? But if you see the northern states and southern states, northern states are less developed compared to that of southern states. Southern states are somewhat developed, right? If you are comparing these two. So who needs more funds? Less developed countries need more funds to go for development, well-being, social well-being of the people. So that is a problem now. Southern states are getting less amount of money based on the criteria. So now this elections are there in this Tamil Nadu and as well as Kerala region. Now they are talking about this double sarkar. Okay, they are not getting the proper funds compared to the of these northern states. So because of this, they are getting disadvantaged. Okay, next one here is the slogan violates the principle of equal citizenship. And here they are saying that a taxpayer in Kerala or Tamil Nadu, they have the same rights as one in this Uttar Pradesh, regardless of party which governs their state. So now in UP, which party is in power in state of UP? Yes, in this southern states we have other regional political parties which are in power. So actually what is happening here is, if central government is having so and so party which is in power, and the same party which is in power in the state, they are getting more amount of grants. But that is not happening with the states where they are having other parties in power at the state level. So because of this, they came up with this slogan called as double sarkar, double engine sarkar. So here they are saying that it is the equal citizenship. Everyone is having the equal citizenship. There should not be any discrimination based on the political party at power in the state. Every taxpayer have the equal right, whether he is there in the southern states or northern state. So this is the one more thing they said here. And they said that there is also a misuse of Article 356. What is this Article 356 talks about? State emergency or president's rule. When this will be imposed? Recently, in which state this had been removed? Manipur. So this year, president's rule will be very important. So when this president's rule will be imposed, who will recommend? Governor of that state will be giving a report that the state is not functioning according to this constitution. If there is any constitutional machinery breakdown, then governor will be asking president to impose state emergency or president's rule. So many a times, because of this state which is under the if it is having other regional political party as a ruling party, and at the central level it is another political party, what happens? There is a misuse of this Article 356. So governor of that state can say that state is not following the constitution. In state there is no proper constitutional machinery. So because of this, they may recommend this president, and based on that report, president can impose this president's rule in the states. So many a times there may be a misuse. So these are the things which mainly said here. And the key issues which are highlighted that in the southern states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, AP and Telangana, they complained that recent population data and finance commission formulas penalize them for successful population control. So especially the southern states, what is happening here? TFR is declining. Why TFR is declining? They are somewhat developed. Literacy rate had been increased. Women participation rate in the labor force had been increased. Women empowerment had been increased. So women are taking the decisions in their reproduction. They are having more reproductive rights compared to that of these northern areas. So because of this, what happened? Women in this area, they have like less children compared to that of northern states. So population will be comparatively less in southern states compared to that of northern states. So population more will get more money from this finance commission. Population less will be having less money. So that is the thing which mainly highlighted here. Because of this successful population control in the southern state, they are getting punishment now. That means they are getting less amount of money under this 280, that is finance commission recommendations. And next one is increased use of cesses and surcharge. So now central government is also increasing its imposition of cess and surcharge, but the provision here is the cess and surcharge will not be shared with the state governments. That is the second important issue. And next one is governors in opposite ruled states, especially in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, the delay of giving assent to the bills, that we know. So these are the issues which are mainly highlighted by this author in this article. Okay, so because of this, what will be the impact? Can we ensure cooperative federalism? Will these states will cooperate with the center? So if central government is coming up with any implementation of the centrally sponsored scheme, will these states will accept it? Will they implement that? There is a problem with this NEP also, right? So NEP, that is National Education Policy, had not yet been implemented uniformly in all the states. And even our central government is proposing UCC, but did it implement it in all the states? No. So if central government and state governments are not working together, can we ensure the development of our country overall? That is the thing which mainly said here, guys. That's it. See, this next article is compulsory voting feasible in Indian context. What is compulsory voting? What is meaning of compulsory voting? I don't know where you are, where will you stay? You have to go and you have to vote. That means nothing but we need 100% voter turnout. Yes or no? Yes, 100% voter turnout is nothing but compulsory voting. But actually, tell me what is the voter turnout in India? 65 to maximum 70%, not more than 70 percentage, right? So here that means what does it means? All people are not going and voting. That means why people are not going to this polling booths and voting for the political party or anything? Why they are not participating in elections? What do you think? Because of only migration? Only migration is the reason, or any other things? Less interest? Why less interest? No trust on political parties. Okay, now let us see here. So this article is saying that Election Commission of India announced the poll schedule that in 4 states, one UT, we have elections, and they said that from April to May 2026 we are going to conduct elections in all these things. Okay, now we have right to vote. Right to vote is said in Article 326. Article 326 talks about adult suffrage. Adult suffrage means nothing but the people who have around 18 years of age, they can enroll and they can participate in this voting mechanism that is called as right to vote. Okay, and it provides citizens, right to vote is provided for the citizen who is not less than 18 years old. Okay, and which constitutional amendment reduced this age from 21 to 18? It is a previous question. 61 Constitutional Amendment Act reduced this voting age for the people from 21 to 18. And even we have section 19 of Representation of People's Act of 1950 also says that a citizens at least 18 years of old and who are ordinarily resident of our country in that constituency, they can be registered to as an elector. And even section 62 of Representation of People's Act of 1959 provides right to every person whose name is entered in the electoral roll. If that guy's name is there in the electoral roll, so it is the right to vote, and he can vote or he can participate in these elections. And here Supreme Court said that right to vote is a statutory right. Okay, now let us see about should voting made compulsory. Voting is essential for functional democracy. It is not a fundamental duty, nor it is a legal duty in India. So proposals for compulsory voting have been debated in our country. So here, right to vote, it is not a fundamental duty, even it is not a legal duty. So legal duty is nothing but if you are not doing that, will you be getting punished? For example, you had right to vote and you have your voter ID and elections are there in your constituency. If you're not going to that polling station and if you're not voting or if you're not casting your vote, will you be get punished? Will you be arrested? Will you be got fined? No, right? So because of that reason, now we cannot go for compulsory voting. It should be voluntary in our country. And even Dinesh Goswami Committee on Electoral Reforms also said that we cannot go for compulsory voting because there are certain difficulties in implementation of compulsory voting in our country. Okay, instead of that, this committee said that we can improve voter participation through awareness campaigns. So we can go for awareness campaign about we can let the people know about the importance of voting, importance of democracy, what is the role of those people in this elections, everything. We can improve this voter turnout, but we cannot go for compulsory voting. And even Law Commission in its report also said that compulsory voting does not result in increased voter turnout. And if we can increase the voter turnout, we can increase only just 7%, not more than 7% through this compulsory voting also. So if you want to increase this participation, we have to go for increasing of awareness. That is the thing which mainly said here. And if you're going for penalizing of these non-voters by imposing fine or restricting their access to government services, it will be like harsh measure, okay, which will not work in the Indian context. That means if someone is not going for voting, so we cannot implement the fine, or we cannot impose like imprisonment of that person, or we cannot bar that person to get this government benefits. It will be like a harsh situation in our country. We cannot implement that. But what can be done here? So what can be done here is, first one is We can go for increasing of enthusiasm among the voters, and we have to exercise their right to vote through innovative campaigns, and we can use social media, the first thing. And second one is for migrant workers, we have to go for strict implementation of statutory holiday on that day of polling. So if you are giving the holiday on that day, at least they'll come back to their homes and they can cast the vote. And next one is we have to increase the transportation facilities on that area. We can go for arranging of special buses and special trains that can increase the participation of these voters. And next one is we can go for advent of new technologies, and we can go for remote voting methods also. Remote voting is nothing but if the people who are not there in their state, if they are out of their states, we can go for uh, ballot votes. You know this postal ballot votes. We can give them ballot votes through the post, and they will be voting there, and they will be sending back. So like that, we can go for using of this postal ballot things. So these are the things which mainly said here. Okay, and this is also written by one former IAS officer. So because of this article is also very important. Okay, and you may get a mains based question on this compulsory voting. And next article here is oceans more than gases help earth cool. So what is article talking about? As you all know that if you take our planet earth, how much percentage of earth is covered with the land and how much percentage of earth is covered with oceans? How much percentage of earth is with land? 20? Oh, 25, 26, 27, 29, 30, 31. How much percentage? It is a basic question, no? How much percentage of water and how much percentage of land? Geography, guys. Don't say that, ma'am, today, from today onwards, geography will be getting started. That is a basic idea that you need to have. As a civil servant, as a future civil servant, you need to know, right? So what is the percentage of land on this planet Earth? Harsha? 70. 3 by 4. Shah. Kranti? Joseph? Navita? 27. Next. 30. No idea. 30. No idea. Sanjana? Very good. At least know the basics, guys. At least know about land, water percentage on earth. Next one is you have to know about, okay, tell me which gas is more in atmosphere? Percentage? 70? What about oxygen percentage? Carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide percentage? Inert gases percentage? Water vapor percentage? Okay, next one more question. Okay, if you take the water sources on the planet Earth, which is the largest source of water on planet Earth? Either oceans, rivers, or lakes? Oceans? Drinking water. Drinking water. Glaciers? Come on. These are the at least basic things that you have to know. So try to make the notes of this. Okay, today your work is try to make the notes of this atmosphere, water sources, salt water, ocean, salt water, drinking water, and this one is percentage of land in India covered by this fresh water and as well as salt water. And you have to know important salt water lakes in India and freshwater lakes in India. So at least do this work, guys. If you don't know this, we can't move forward. You will not understand all those things. At least these are the basic things. No one will tell all those things. No one will tell. So try to do these things, guys. Okay, now let us see here. This article is saying that oceans more than gases help Earth cool. Okay, so if you take this Earth, on this Earth we have land part. In land we have 7 continents, right? So apart from these 7 continents, whatever the space which is there on our planet Earth is covered by water. And we have how many major oceans? 5. What are there? Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Arctic and Antarctic. So we have 5 oceans which are covering our Earth with water. And second one is around our Earth, what we have? Atmosphere. What is the atmosphere? What is the meaning of atmosphere? The air which is surrounding our planet Earth is called as atmosphere, right? So around our Earth we have gases. On our planet Earth we have water and as well as land. Is that clear? So from where we are getting energy from? From sun we are getting energy. It is in the form of short wave radiation. It is called as insolation, right? Have you heard about this word insolation? Incoming solar radiation is called as insolation, and we will be receiving that in the short wave, and we will be reflecting that back in long wave radiation. So how much amount we are getting is equal to the amount we are reflecting back or radiating back, is called as heat budget. So by this heat budget only we are maintaining our temperature of the earth. If there is no heat budget, if you are not maintaining, means what happens? Extreme heat can happen, right? So whatever the amount of heat we are getting, what we are doing here is we are reflecting it back and we are radiating it back. Two methods. Reflecting is nothing but, if it is getting in the short wave, we are reflecting in the short wave. For example, we have glaciers. What are the white surfaces which are present on our planet Earth will be reflecting back. Reflecting is nothing but, they are taking in this short wave and they are reflecting back in the short wave itself. So what are the white surfaces we have? Glaciers and even clouds. Clouds and as well as glaciers, they will reflect it back in the short wave radiation. And what are the other things like gases, and even we have surface of earth will be radiating back, that will be in the form of long wave radiation. So now if you come to this article, it is saying that researchers recently analyzed that Antarctic ice cores to reconstruct the earth climate over last 3 million years, and they found that they cooled the world's ocean, and they found that the world's ocean cooled by 2.5 degrees centigrade, most of it around 2.7 million years ago. While the methane levels were unchanged, those of carbon dioxide did so barely 2.9 to 1.2 million years ago. The findings suggest that ocean circulation and ice sheet growth rather than gas levels alone primarily drove this long-term cooling. That means from years onwards, whenever this planet Earth was formed, we all started receiving this sunlight. So on our planet Earth, there are certain surfaces which led to the cooling of our Earth. First one here is ice sheets. Why ice sheets? They will be reflecting back. And second one is ocean circulation. As you all know that we have 5 major oceans on this planet Earth, and these oceans will be always moving. They will not at all static. They will move in the form of currents. They are called as ocean currents, and we have 2 types of ocean currents. One is warm, second one is cold. So what happens here is, if you take our planet Earth, here we have poles, right? North pole, here we have south pole, here we have 0 degrees equator. So where we will be having more temperature? In this tropical region we have more temperature, and where we have less temperature? In this poles we have less temperature. So whatever the oceans which are present in this area, so in this north part we have Arctic Ocean, in the south part we have Antarctic Ocean. So the water will be obviously cool in this region, yes or no, in this part. And here we have Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean and as well as Indian Ocean. Water will be warm because they will receive more sunlight. So here what happened in this area? Cool oceanic current or cold ocean currents will be forming here, and here also we have cold ocean currents, and in this region we have warm ocean currents. So warm ocean currents will become lighter, they will start moving towards pole, and from here ocean currents will be moving towards this equator. So because of this movement of ocean currents from this hot regions to cold regions and cold regions to hot regions, that will try to balance this temperature on our planet Earth. That is about this article. Okay, not gases. The more temperature on Earth is controlled by this ocean, because if you say technically, so we have major portion, more than 75% of our Earth is covered by this oceans itself. So because of this, they contribute more for the cooling of our Earth. Clear? That is about this article. Okay, you have to know all those concepts like atmosphere, heat budget, long wave radiation, short wave radiation, and how much percentage is reflected by clouds, how much percentage is reflected by these glaciers, and what about this oceanic currents. And today geography will be getting started, right? In your oceanography you'll be studying about that currents, how they will be moving, in which direction, what is the impact, everything clearly. Okay, now let us see the questions. See here, these are the previous year's questions itself. First one is, consider the following statements about preamble. First one, it is part of constitution. Second one, it can be amended. Next one, it guarantees fundamental rights. Which of the above statements are correct? Is it part of constitution or not? It can be amended or not? Yes. Which amendment? How many times so far we amended our preamble? One time. Which is that amendment? 42 or 44 or 46? 40? Okay, then what about fundamental rights? Is it grants fundamental rights? Is it grants fundamental rights or not? No. Okay, what will be the answer? 1 and 2 only. Okay, see this text question. Which of the following are the applications of artificial intelligence? First one, facial recognition. Second one, autonomous vehicles. Third one, blockchain. All the above? Think once again. What is blockchain technology? It is related to what? Cryptocurrencies? What about artificial intelligence? Is that both same? It's entirely different. This artificial intelligence is entirely different. So here facial recognition, autonomous vehicles comes under AI, but not this blockchain. So answer will be A1 and 2 only. Okay. So these are the important topics that appear in our today's Hindu newspaper. By this I'm concluding, guys. Thank you so much for watching.